Hello and welcome to Dialogue. I'm Yang Rui in Beijing. On February the 6th, representatives from Afghanistan, Pakistan, China and the United States will meet again in the Pakistani capital city of Islamabad to discuss how to resume the stalled peace process between Kabul and the Taliban. As a major stakeholder in this quadrilateral talks, what are Pakistan's thoughts on the process and of regional security? How does Pakistan see China's role there? 2016 marks the 65th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between China and Pakistan. How will the two countries strengthen their cooperation, particularly under the Belt and Road Initiative? To discuss these and other issues, I'm honored to be joined here by Mr. Tariq Fatemi, Pakistan's Minister of State for Foreign Affairs and Special Assistant to the Prime Minister. Before we start the interview, let's look at this.
With diplomatic relations stretching back 65 years ago, China and Pakistan have remained all-weather friends. Amid terrorist threats, the two countries continue to forge pragmatic cooperation. Last July, the process of admitting Pakistan and India as full members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization began. In parallel with mutual political and military trusts, economic ties between the two have been strengthened. During President Xi Jinping's first state visit to Pakistan in April last year, Pakistan and China signed a $46 billion agreement worth about a fifth of Pakistan's annual GDP in order to commence the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. As a major stakeholder in the quadrilateral talks on the Afghan peace process, Pakistan hosted the first round in the resort town of Murree last July.
It is for the first time that direct talks were held between the representatives of Afghan government and representatives of Tehrik-e-Taliban Afghanistan. This is a breakthrough.
In January this year, the second round was held in Islamabad. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi said Pakistan had a unique role to play in the Afghan peace talks. And this weekend, representatives from Afghanistan, Pakistan, China and the United States will gather again to discuss how to resume the stalled peace process between Kabul and the Taliban.
Welcome to Dialogue, sir. Pakistan is an old friend of China, so it comes as no surprise that you are here again. But what is the mission and what are the major issues topping the agenda between you and your Chinese counterpart this time around?
Well, thank you, Mr. Yang. It's always a pleasure coming on your program. As you have yourself stated, Pakistan and China are the closest of friends and strongest of allies. We take pride in our relations with China, and therefore regular consultations at all levels is important and essential. In fact, we wish to make this year 2016 which marks the 65th anniversary of the establishment of our diplomatic ties, as a year of a special significance by having a large number of exchanges between the two countries in all spheres: political, military, cultural, sports, the arts, so that the relationship and its significance can be permeated into the man on the street. And that is why I am here, to have consultations with the Chinese leaders, think tanks, Academy of Social Sciences, and now with you, so that our message of friendship and solidarity with China is carried everywhere.
What captures attention for the general public here in China, and indeed for who observe the One Belt One Road Initiative? They are very much concerned with the progress of building the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor that would connect the Gwadar Airport with our new frontier area of Xinjiang, the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. Can you brief us on the development in this particular regard?
Certainly, it's a very important idea. It's a transformational concept, and it was first mooted during Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's visit to Beijing in July 2013. Now, after that, the two governments began putting flesh on the bones, and coming up with solid agreements and MOUs which were signed during the historic visit of President Xi Jinping to Islamabad in April 2015. So it is actually after April 2015 that we are now engaged in actualizing and in implementation of those understandings and agreements. Roughly the figures envisaged are about $46 billion, of which 35 billion are earmarked for energy projects. Why? Because Pakistan is desperately short in power and we need energy and we need it very fast. So these are private sector projects in which Chinese companies, with the support and assistance and partnership of Pakistani and other companies, will be setting up power plants in wind, solar, hydel, coal, in the entire spectrum. And we want these to come up very quickly, because in the absence of power our industrial production is fallen down, unemployment has increased, so all these will have a huge impact and a very positive impact. In addition to this, about $10 or $11 billion are earmarked for two other aspects of cooperation. One relates to infrastructure, meaning motorways. The biggest and the most famous and the most critical will be the one that will upgrade the existing Karakoram highway linking the two countries and then taking it all the way as a motorway to the city of Gwadar, which is a natural harbor and potentially a major seaport on the Gulf itself. It also envisages setting up industrial and economic zones. And finally, where, as I stated, the money will be spent on Gwadar and its facilities. So A, you have energy, B, you have infrastructure, and C, you have Gwadar port and Gwadar related activities. So that is what it is. And we are very satisfied with the cooperation and assistance we are getting from China. A large number of Chinese are coming to Pakistan and engaged in these projects. And we are confident that they will impact not only on the national economy but on the lives of the people of Pakistan. So we are very excited about these projects.
What do you think are our concerns about the threat assessment? How should we look at the risks that might be involved in building Gwadar, which is very close to the Persian Gulf, but some 8 to 9 years ago I was invited by your foreign ministry, and I was a little bit surprised by the bleak picture of Gwadar. Now, part of the reasons for the underdevelopment in this particular region is your security concern, and that's very much shared by the Chinese investors as well, because they are wondering whether they can enjoy the smooth return for the investment.
Well, first of all, unfortunately, the global situation is such that many countries are affected by security factors. They have been negatively impacted by rising tendency to take recourse to violence. In Pakistan, the situation has improved greatly since the time you were there. And I'll tell you why. First of all, you were there when there was a military regime in Pakistan. Mm-hmm. The military regime was an authoritarian regime. And Pakistanis, by our very nature, by our psyche, we oppose authoritarian governments. And that authoritarian government was not giving the share to the people of Balochistan, who suffered from the feeling that the federal government was not giving them the share that they deserved of the national pie. So that was one factor. The second was that major economic projects were missing from that part of the world. So there was no meaningful improvement in the lives and the livelihood of the people. Now it's a different situation altogether. You not only have a federal government that is elected, you have a provincial government which enjoys solid support in the Balochistan legislature. And in fact, in the first 2.5 years of our term in office, we had a gentleman from the opposition party leading the government in Balochistan, so that we could create a feeling of everybody being part of the stakeholders. That's the second. The third is that we have gone beyond simply ideas and concept by creating a special force of highly trained military personnel whose job will be only and only devoted to the safety and security of Chinese personnel and Chinese enterprises, because we do understand and appreciate China's concerns, and therefore we have shared with the Chinese the ideas as to what we could do to give them the kind of confidence and assurance that they need to come and invest in Pakistan. So all these measures have now greatly set at rest China's concerns. And finally, I want to tell you that our agencies and our organizations that look after safety, security issues in Pakistan keep a very close consultation and coordination with their counterparts in China, so that whenever, whatever initiative or measure needs to be taken is taken, so that the work continues unhindered.
Given the balanced nature of our policy towards South Asia, we not only appreciate the dynamics in the process of rapprochement between Pakistan and India, we also appreciate inclusiveness that should characterize the ongoing process of national reconciliation between your government, different provinces like Balochistan, as well as perhaps most importantly, the Pakistani Taliban. What can you tell us about the war of attrition, if any, between government forces and the Pakistani Taliban, which may have been heavily influenced by Islamic extremism?
First of all, the government of Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, we tried to engage in a dialogue with the Taliban, the militants. We made a serious effort. We knew it would not lead anywhere, but still we wanted to give them the opportunity. When we did not get the necessary response, we worked out a plan of action, which is in our language known as Zarb-e-Azab, which is a military campaign in which, it will surprise your viewers, but 180,000 regular troops are engaged in a massive military operation to clear the areas where these Taliban were based or from which they were operating. This has resulted in the elimination of thousands of militants, hundreds of their hideouts, safe havens, training facilities, ammunition dumps have been destroyed. We have also suffered enormously. Thousands of our brave soldiers and officers of the armed forces have lost their lives in this particular campaign. It has had remarkable success, and we have either killed them or they have been forced to flee the country. The other aspect of it is our total cooperation and coordination with Chinese organizations, so that there is no space at all left to any element that are characterized generally by the term ETIM. The ETIM is viewed as much as a threat to Pakistan as it is to China, because China's peace and stability is as dear to us as our own peace and stability to us. And I want to tell your viewers that we have had remarkable success against the ETIM, much to the satisfaction of the Chinese leadership, and we will continue on that endeavor. Finally, I want to tell you that this campaign is in its last stages, but this will continue till such time as we are totally satisfied that the problem has been resolved. Of course, I want to tell you that we have had to pay a price, as I told you, because there has been a blowback. And these guys have gone in and blown up schools, blown up colleges. Last year they blew up a school in Peshawar with 130 plus young kids. School kids were killed in a most brutal fashion. 2 weeks ago, less than 2 weeks ago, they stormed a university in Peshawar, killed over 20 students and teachers. These are deeply, deeply regrettable and highly, saddening. And yet, none of these efforts or attempts has weakened in fact, it has strengthened and steeled our resolve that there is no other option for us but to take the militants out. No quarter will be given, no mercy shown, and we will continue to focus on this task and responsibility till we are fully satisfied of success.
The current round of quadrilateral negotiations about the future of Afghanistan between China, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and the United States are well underway. You are a critically important member of this process. What can you tell us about, for example, the latest round of cross-border tensions between Afghanistan and your country? I know remarkable progress has been made following General Rahil Sharif's historic visit to Afghanistan to win trust, to promote cooperation. Now, what is the latest?
First of all, this military campaign against the militants and terrorists began about 20 months ago. Secondly, I want to tell you, and it's very important for your readers to know, that it does not merely consist of military campaign in which 180,000 troops are deployed. It is also supplemented or supported by what is known as the National Action Plan, in which we are engaged in measures known as de-radicalization, better management of religious schools, a sharper focus on activities that are carried out in these religious schools and in mosques. We are also focused on preventing money to be funneled into these organizations from inside the country or outside the country. And we are also engaged in bringing in the religious teachers within the fold in order to convince them that they must not be in any way cooperating with those who are militants. Because here it is very important to note that you had used the word Islamic militants. In our view, there is no such thing as Islamic militants, because I am not aware, sir, of any recognized religion that sanctions or permits violence against innocent citizens. But all people of different faiths have extremist tendencies, and you see these extremist tendencies all over the world. But as I stated, Islam does not permit violence against innocent people, whatever the excuse may be. The quadrilateral was established during the Heart of Asia conference in Islamabad on the 10th of December 2015. We are convinced that after 10 plus years of American and NATO and ISAF presence in Afghanistan, if the issue of the Taliban could not be resolved, a serious and sincere effort towards reconciliation should take place. President Ashraf Ghani agrees with this. Therefore, President Ashraf Ghani and the Afghan government has to take the lead. They have to be the ones initiating the process, which is in diplomatic terms we call an Afghan-owned and Afghan-led peace process. China, because it's a neighbor, it has a very important stake in peace and stability of the region. The United States, because it has been the power which has placed military forces there for over a decade. Pakistan also as a close neighbor. We decided to establish this quadrilateral. In other words, China, United States and Pakistan will play a supporting role in promoting the reconciliation process. The first effort has to be try to win over as many of the Taliban as possible, which is again referred to diplomatically as the reconcilable Taliban. Those that refuse to accept the constitution of Afghanistan, those that refuse to end their violence and enter the political process, they are known as the irreconcilables. And then they can be taken on by other means. So this is the purpose. 2 meetings have taken place of the quadrilateral. A third is going to take place in a few days' time on the 6th of February in Islamabad. And there the officials of the 4 of the quadrilateral consultative group will determine the modalities of how, where, when and with whom the talks between the representative of the Kabul government and the Taliban should take place. So it's a very sincere, it's a very serious effort to explore how the reconciliation process should proceed.
Thank you very much. We understand you are having stakes in this particular region. You're watching Dialogue with Mr. Tariq Fatemi, Pakistani's Minister of State for Foreign Affairs and Special Assistant to the Prime Minister. We shall be back in a short while. Stay with us. Welcome back. There is no single voice coming out of the Taliban. Pakistan could be an exception because you are allegedly able to exercise influence on some factions of the Taliban, if not all of it. And therefore, many people would say, hey, Pakistan could play a role that cannot be replaced in the quadrilateral negotiation. Honestly, how much can you do to persuade the Taliban to accept the peace proposal?
Well, you see, Afghanistan is a sovereign state. It has an elected leadership. We recognize the legitimacy of President Ashraf Ghani's office. We want President Ashraf Ghani and his government to be the ones talking to the Taliban. It is only they who can determine what is good for their country. As friends and well-wishers of Afghanistan and as players that feel the necessity and importance of peace and stability in Afghanistan, we will play a constructive and positive role in promoting that reconciliation process. Yes, because of the 30 plus years during which the Afghan refugees and the others have been living in Pakistan, we have some relationship with them. We may also have some influence over them. We want to channel that influence over the Taliban in trying to convince them to see the advantage of engaging in peace dialogue rather than sticking to their policy of violence. And we had some slight success when it started in July, but the process got disrupted, as you know, when news of Mullah Omar's death came out, and the new leadership needed time to consolidate itself, and regrettably violence also increased after that. But now all our influence is being used to convincing the Taliban or the major factions of the Taliban, and the person who claims now to be the successor of Mullah Omar, his name is Mullah Mansoor, for Mullah Mansoor and his people to engage in a serious dialogue process with the representatives of the Kabul government, Afghan government, so that they can agree on a process that can bring peace to Afghanistan.
Here is a catch-22 situation for those who are ready to talk with the government. I'm talking about the attitude of the Taliban. But there is one thing that prevents them from moving ahead. They accuse the United States of killing thousands of innocent people since the invasion in 2001. They say they will not talk to the invaders. And so long as the US is involved, the Taliban would refuse to be involved in the process. However, President Ghani asked the United States to maintain a kind of some degree of a presence, a military presence there, because of his excessive concerns about the inability of his own security forces. So what do you think of the dilemma here?
Well, yes, you are right that the Taliban do state that as long as...
Perhaps it's by nature because of the bilateral security arrangement.
Between Afghanistan and
Exactly.
the US, yes,
And therefore,
which was signed as soon as President Ashraf Ghani.
Are you, first of all, give me a short reply. Do you think, in your assessment, that the US government would withdraw all of its troops by the end of 2016 as scheduled? If not, the bilateral security arrangement between Kabul and Washington will still prevent and reject the Taliban to be part of the peace process there?
No, my view is that these conditions or these preconditions are part of the negotiating process. It's not necessary that they will become stumbling blocks. I think that as the process moves forward and the two sides are able to establish strong linkages and channels of communication, you will see a greater understanding on the part of the Taliban as to the presence of the American forces there. I don't know about their withdrawal schedule. You know that the newly appointed American commander of US forces, General Nicholson, stated in his briefing to the Senate that he is going to recommend that the forces stay there for a longer period of time. But that is part of American policy.
We know there are always differences between the White House and the Pentagon with regard to the military presence. The last question,
Please.
Your Excellency, the last question is about the future of the SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. You have just met with the General Secretary of this regional bloc. Now, as scheduled, India and Pakistan are likely to be admitted to at the SCO in July 2016. Do you think we're going to go ahead as scheduled? What does that mean for Pakistan?
During my presence in Beijing, I had the pleasure and honor of calling on the Secretary General of the SCO. We had a very warm and cordial meeting. He informed me that his staff and the technical experts are preparing the various papers and are coming up with various understandings and MOUs that will complete the process. As you are aware, during the heads of states meeting in Ufa last August, Pakistan and India's candidatures was approved. Thereafter, we were given nearly 3 dozen agreements and MOUs which we have examined and we have approved and communicated our approval, and we are now very hopeful that in the June meeting, it's going to be June meeting in Tashkent of the heads of government of the SCO that will give its formal approval. We believe that we are part of the region where SCO, we believe that we have historic linkages, economic linkages, and a strong interest in those elements that brought about the creation of the SCO in the first instance, to ensure peace and stability, to work on cooperation as regards counter-terrorism, to work on further enhancing cooperation on counter-narcotic, counter-money laundering, and promoting economic projects. We believe that we are eminently qualified for that. And incidentally, we have been observers of the SCO for the past 10 years, and our count is that all member states of the SCO are in favor of Pakistan gaining full membership, and we believe that if we do, inshallah, God willing, we will be able to make a very positive and constructive contribution to the further enhancement and strengthening of linkages amongst the SCO countries.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure, sir. Every good wish to you. May I finally, through you, convey my congratulations and good wishes to the people of China on the Happy New Year, the Year of the Monkey. I wish every good fortune to China.
Thank you indeed.